Great. Well, we're going to now get women from a couple of different women to come on. We've got Kerry Bruce and Zan Dalio and April Morrow. I'm going to start with Zan, even though you haven't been there live, but just because you picked a couple of the clips, and then let's just chat. We'll chat amongst ourselves. I think a lot of women in the webinar have been watching these or been going to them, so we can just recap what's been going on and what we think's been happening.
So I was in LA, and then I decided to just show up as much as I can, and I've been able to, because of the time zone stuff, been able to go to the rest of them. And the thing that struck me the most was the difference between, and Kelly J has addressed this, and in the Chicago event, I'll call it an event, it was pretty violent, and violent in the way that the activists, the trans activists, were kessling in and really being physically really close in the fact, and shouting and making incredible noise that was actually pretty damaging to one's ears if one didn't have something to protect them, and that the police did not do anything. And Kelly J addressed this, and some of the women from the UK in the live chat said, "Why is this going on?" And I think that's an interesting question to ask about American society, which we can't get into here. And then to compare that to what happened in Loudoun, which it was a completely different scenario, and we can watch clips if we want to watch them to see the differences in these two events. And then also just to add that Amy Souza, also known as Known Heretic, is also streaming, and I watched both streams and commenting, and she made some really interesting comments, analyses about the differences in the two events and the strategies that the two events were that were used in the two events. One was in Chicago, make the event public so that everyone can attend who wants to attend. And of course, the trans activists were there. Whereas in Loudoun, apparently, and I wasn't in on it, the location wasn't made so public. It was in the garden or on the grass by the administrative building, and there were no activists, and you could hear the activists. So Kelly J was saying, look, in the United States, you have the right to free speech, but you don't have the right to be heard. And I thought that was brilliant. And I'll leave it there.
Let's go to April now. April, it's horrific that you've been injured. You were injured in one of these meetings, and so everybody's heard about it and hoping you're getting better.
In the very beginning of this event, we had decided to hold it in Tacoma at the Tolson Plaza, and we have held events there before through Sovereign Women Speak, and it's a really great place. We've never had any problems before. And what happened was immediately, let's see, how can I move this forward? Here we go. I get this instant message, private message on Facebook from a man, Brent Tolson, and it's the same last name. And so I look it up and find out that he's somehow, couldn't figure out how, but he was related to the former mayor. So he reaches out to me and says, we have food trucks there that day. Please go somewhere else, basically. And so I email him back and said, or text him back, whatever. I said, great, we're glad there's food trucks because there'll be more people. And anyway, he was trying to get us not to hold it there. And obviously come to find out later, the reason why is because he has a daughter who is claiming to be a boy, and his whole entire family are TRAs. So he was trying very hard to make it difficult for us to be there, but we ended up there anyways. Then the next thing that happened was the school put out this notice to the students to avoid, but yet by doing this, what they were doing is announcing what was taking place. So we're not really sure if the school was actually really trying to protect their students or if they were trying to create chaos. They're also misinforming the public because they're calling this a Sovereign Women Speak protest, and it was not. This was a Let Women Speak. So that this day where you see this, this plaza here, when we first got there, I'm going to play this for you. There were very few of the TRAs and some of the students and teachers up on top, and this is what it looked like. Okay, you see the man in the purple there as he's telling the kids and adults to come down. He's the man in the purple, he's waving them to come down. So at first they were all up on top, things were cool. And then they get waved to come down, and the next thing you know, they're just descending down upon us, one tier after another. They get down to the bottom, they tear out all of our signs, they're stomping all over them, they're picking up the stakes and running around like a crazy people, unhinged, like they're going to stab us with them. The next thing that happened was, and there was many more, this doesn't show how many there were, a lot more came. All it took was for the students to text what was going on, and more came from the school and showed up. And the next thing you know is they start descending down upon us. And because they're all down and circled us now, we're like in the middle of this big mob. So Posey's hitting the mic, seeing the danger, and makes the announcement. So what she's telling them is that things are getting too dangerous and that we need to leave. And so that's basically what took place. The women started to try to exit the park, and after she made this announcement and women started to go, what happens is, okay, here you go, here we go. So you see this, they come down, they're coming down off of the tiers, and they're encircling us. And I was so thankful that one of our women was up on the top, and she was videoing this, and she actually catches right on video here where I've got about 4 or 5 guys surrounding me. I'm being attacked by about 4 or 5 different men, and I am trying to get over to Melinda, this tall woman here in the blue, because I'm feeling very vulnerable and surrounded by these people. And as I try to make it over to her, about 4 or 5 guys attack me and are trying to, grab my equipment, and I end up getting pushed down, so you can't see me anymore there. I'm pushed down to the ground, and you can see them. These 2 men right here that are leaving, they're running here. She got it all on video. They are the ones who broke my hand and stole my journaling equipment, and the cops caught them right away, and they put the one man in jail, and they're going to be prosecuting them. I have gone to the school board meeting, and we all went there and spoke, and it's so obvious at the whole entire school. I feel like we're just wasting our time, because you can tell they're just all on their side. But we of course have to do this for record. But anyway, what I am doing, what I'm attempting to do, is I'm attempting to school the Tacoma art school, because there were teachers, the principal was there. This was all condoned and even encouraged by adults. So it was pretty, I'm going to tell you, it was pretty scary. I wasn't afraid in the beginning when I first got there, but after about a half an hour and being surrounded, that was a lot of adrenaline, a lot of cortisol, and that was my first time I've ever been, that close to that much violence. And having my hand crushed was infuriating, because I feel like they should be really punished for this, and I don't feel like they're going to be. And all it's done is put me out of work. And, it'd be different if the left would put this on their media, but no one's really even seeing this but us. And so my question is how is this really benefiting us? Yesterday, I was driving back from Olympia at the Capitol, where we're going to be holding our next speaker's corner. And I stopped by Tacoma, and they were having a meet and greet with the Tacoma police officers and have coffee with them. And I went straight to the chief of police and asked to speak with him. And we went to the side, and he admitted that there were police officers there that were witnessing this. And I said, well, I thanked him. I said, thanks. That helps my case to know that there were officers, not just parents and teachers and a principal there condoning and encouraging this, but there were actually police officers there. We had called the police so many times and they did not come. And they were told that women were being assaulted. So now I'm told that there's police officers there watching me being assaulted and no one stepped in to intervene. We have no protection, women. It's really scary. I mean, here in Washington, I know it's that Portland's really bad too, but Washington is really, really bad.
I wanted to comment on one thing. In the introduction, Zan said that it appeared that that police would not intervene in Chicago. And I would like to say that they did intervene in a great number of situations. They did not cut down on the noise pollution, and I'll get into that in a minute, but we are private security. We're 4 off-duty Chicago police officers. They were wonderful. They helped us define our area. They created a boundary. They were literally like working like doormen to get into our inner circle where we end up. Initially, when we were first being kettled, the bike police used their bikes in a row to physically create a barrier space. And so I also saw officers remove certain noisemakers from some individuals after a time. When their behavior warranted it. Well, I suppose that's subjective, but so I think they really did intervene. And I think on the noise pollution thing, we investigated, getting petitions for our gathering. And it's in Chicago, if you can gather in any space you want. They're really good about public assembly. But if you want to have amplification, you need to be permitted for certain levels of amplification. I think ours would have qualified. That would have been upward of $2,500 in the city of Chicago, something we could not afford. So we were not permitted for our amplification at our assembly. My personal feeling is that's why the officers did not cut down on the noise pollution from our opponents. I think they opted to be neutral in that regard. They could have cited all of us and shut down our assembly, and instead they just focused on our physical safety. And I'm really appreciative of that.
I think my viewpoint is is sort of informed sort of by an outsider's sort of incomprehension of how things function here. Kelly J has been trying to collect the support money for armed security guards because there has been serious threats. And she's been very clear about them costing, I guess it was in Miami, about $1,000 for one. So the issue that the way that I see it is just from that standpoint of those folks, the women who were just, I think they're primarily from the UK, just in awe of this inability to express one's First Amendment right, even though compared with the UK, which has no actual First Amendment. And so, yeah, that's where I was coming from it. I'm generally very critical of the United States. I have American passport, I have a European passport, I've lived in both places. And so I generally take a more critical standpoint about what's going on in the United States politically and socially than perhaps other Americans do. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to April.
The prognosis on my hand is that the bones below the two middle fingers are fractured, and that there's a lot of tissue damage. Remember that this hand was already damaged from a pressure washer injury like 3 or 4 months prior to this, and that it had not even healed yet. And so, it didn't take much to re-damage it. So I will be out of work. I don't know how long. She said the bones will heal faster than the tissue damage. I can still follow in dance, so I can teach guys, but leading women, I need my left. The funny thing is, that is what I use to lead women. I use my two middle fingers to pull her forward in swing dance, and that's what I cannot do. And I've had to let down, students, and it's really, really unfortunate, and it's really impacting, my ability to teach. But good news is it is going to get better, and it's just going to take some time.
There's a strategy, and I'm glad we're having these discussions as a movement, because if you just want to, if your objective is just to be heard, then a quiet park setting with just, at an unannounced location is an option. But if you're also trying to show and demonstrate how we do not have free speech rights and how much violence is being inflicted on us and harassment, then you want to have a public event. You need to talk about that. You need to know your people. I mean, I think that's all part of organizing. I think that was one reason why Chicago came off in all that onslaught, was because there were prominently seasoned activists there that knew how to gray rock. They did not engage. They just focused on the speakers and each other. And I think Jeanette Cooper was great with lightening the tone with her silliness and jokes. And we did not feel afraid. I'm sure Kelly J did, but many of us were not concerned. We were enjoying ourselves. We were, dancing along with the beat and the music, and setting that kind of a tone, I think, helps settle women down and keep them focused.